The following episode contains approximately 815 spoilers for all seasons and episodes of Lost. You have been warned. Good afternoon, good morning, good night. Welcome back to another episode of Lost the Plot, where two Irish lads talk shite about ABC's hit show, Lost. But before we get into it, let me introduce you to my fabulous co-host, Dave. Dave, how you doing?
What's up, Beto? You caught me unawares there. Somehow I thought you weren't going to start that quick. And so I had the head in my phone. And I was like, oh, holy shit, we're starting. Fucking hell. That's never happened before.
Usually I take more of a run into it.
Yeah. So I was like, I don't know. I must have started looking at my phone before you said, right, I'm going to go now, because I didn't even realize you were really going.
Jesus.
Look behind the curtain. I'm good, though. I'm good. Thank you for asking. How are you? How was the week? Any old crack?
Week has been pretty okay, fairly eventful. You and I were on the pre-show for Lost in My 40s for one of their episodes.
Correct. Yeah, that came out, I guess, 2 weeks ago when you're hearing this, but you can see it on their YouTube channel.
Yeah, if you search for Lost in My 40s on YouTube, you'll find a YouTube channel, and one of the videos in there, you know, you look at the thumbnail and you'll see the same four people in each one. There's one video that'll have 6 motherfuckers, and 2 of them is myself and your boy here.
That's us. If you're ever curious, if you're one of our 2 or 3 listeners who doesn't know us personally, and you're ever curious, what we actually look like, how accurate are Jimmy Purcell's cartoons? Let me tell you, very accurate. You can tune into that and see our faces, see us in motion.
And also, if you want to find out where Dave actually lives, tune on in. Because we're not revealing it here.
I don't know if we should be pointing people to that. I think that's a little Easter egg they find.
We have 100 followers on Instagram. They have over 1,000. I think we're safe.
Oh, damn. How do we siphon some of those followers? I guess we appear on their podcast.
I can tell you exactly how we get that many followers, because I have a funny story to tell you.
Oh, go on.
Holy shit, man. So the lead host of Lost in My 40s is a girl called Lacey, right?
Shout out to Lacey.
Lacey, you're a fucking hero, and you know exactly the story I'm going to tell. After we finished recording, right? We, as in our Lost the Plot Instagram page, got a follow from Space Bear Media, the global conglomerate that organizes Lost in My 40s.
Could I quickly say, do you think that's like a pun on Space Bar? That's what I always thought, and I like it. Space Bear.
Oh, I never even thought of that. If it is, that's pretty clever. If not,
I like it.
Missed the trick. So anyway, Space Bear Media follows us, and Space Bear Media is basically, from what I can gather, it's Lacey's personal Instagram page, but it's also used to promote the various podcasts of Space Bear Media, including Lost in My 40s and other ones. I think there's one called Zero Shame in My 40s, something like that, right?
Jace, can you imagine the cheek? Can you imagine me posting my selfies up on the Lost the Plot in Instagram?
Speaking of selfies, I was scrolling through the pictures on the Space Bear Media Instagram account, and one of them just so happens to be Lacey herself in her bra with a drink in her hand, right?
Okay.
So I'm sitting next to my girlfriend while I'm scrolling down to this page. So I scroll by real quick, and there's a picture of a boxer dog next. And I'm like, oh, he's so cute. My girlfriend looks over my shoulder and goes, oh, he's so cute, the bebadoos. That's what she calls all cute things, bebadoos, right? Don't ask, there's no logic to it. She's French, foreigner, whatever. So she just snatches the phone out of my hand. And what does she do? She scrolls and sees the picture of Lacey in her bra, and in trying to swipe away from it, likes it. Now, this wouldn't have been so bad, except this is easily like the 4th, 5th, or 6th picture down in the timeline. So she's not even liking the first picture. She's specifically liking only the picture of Lacey in her bra.
What a narrative. What a yarn you've spun here to avoid admitting that you just like the picture yourself.
Shut the fuck up. I would not out myself like that. So I'm like, girl, what are you doing? And she just starts panicking and fumbling the phone. She's like, I don't know. I just saw boobies and got excited. So I was like, give me that damn thing. Unlike the picture. And then I'm like, oh, Lacey's probably gotten a notification about this. So I got to send her a DM. So I sent her a DM and explained the whole thing, that it was the girlfriend, sent her a voice note. The girlfriend jumped in on it and she was like, it's all my fault. She admitted fault to it. It was fucking hilarious.
Oh, damn. So what you're saying is the moral of the story is we got to get some bra pics up on our Instagram and we'll get 1,000 followers.
That is exactly it, because Lacey said that in the early days of their podcast, she made a promise to their followers that she would do an episode in a really low cut top, like show off the girls, if they reached a certain amount of followers, and they did, and so she did. You can find that on the Space Bear Media YouTube page as well.
Damn, we should have had boobs and also done a video element to our podcast. Imagine how many listeners we'd have.
So yeah, that was really the only semi-interesting thing that happened during the week. Recording with the Lost in My 40s crew and then liking Lacey's tits on Instagram. But that actually brings me quite nicely into our next segment, Dave. Dave, do you remember what our next segment is?
Oh, I think I do.
I believe it is listener emails. So, as I said, that last segment brings us into our listener email, because the listener email is from none other than Lacey J herself.
What up, Lacey?
What up, girl? So, Lacey, having scanned this email a little bit, I haven't read it in full, but I just kind of scanned through it. It seems to reference a much previous episode where I mentioned that our biggest fear with regards to COVID is that it becomes resistant to antibiotics. And even saying it now, I'm cringing, right? So
yeah. I actually had a friend text me about this as well and say that all.
Can I just say beforehand, I did know what I meant, but I misspoke. So getting into this email, Lacey writes, "Hello, lads. I just finished listening to your Christmas special and I'm officially caught up on the podcast."
Whoop.
I'm going to pause there and say that they are still caught up, because I got a message from them just today about last week's episode. Or sorry, the episode 2 weeks ago. I continue. "I'm enjoying it immensely, even as your rival, lol. However, there is one thing that made me cringe. You both decided that the worst thing you can think of is an antibiotic-resistant virus. I cannot remember which episode it was in." Pause. Neither can I. Unpause. "But I have terrible news for you, because all viruses are antibiotic resistant."
Yeah, I had a friend text me the exact same thing.
Yep. Antibiotics are used to treat bacterial infections. Viruses are immune to them. When it comes to viruses, our immune system does all the hard work. The best medicine can do is make us comfortable, treat the symptoms, and minimize the effects of the infection. That goes for viruses from COVID to herpes to HIV to the common cold. That's why chicken soup is the best thing for the latter. There isn't much else we can do. Speaking of which, the common cold is also a coronavirus, like COVID-19. For all we know, tens of thousands of years ago, the common cold could have been a killer, like COVID, but it's become so endemic that it's virtually harmless. Cross your fingers, that's the way COVID is headed as well. Anyway, I digress. But for the record, the worst thing imaginable is actually total antimicrobial resistance, meaning what happens if all our antibiotics stop working. Keep in mind, this isn't imaginary. It's inevitable thanks to evolution. Without working antibiotics, modern medicine effectively stops functioning. Pause. Yeah, I told you this was going to be a long email, all right?
Can I just jump in and say here that our listeners are lucky. They're very lucky that we are desperate for correspondence, because I've noticed a trend.
Anything.
I've noticed a trend with most things we read out are just correcting us.
Yep.
I mean, I'm just kidding. We do appreciate that. But, maybe include a lost discussion question as well.
Yeah, maybe we should do that. Let's stop correcting us, guys, and, get back to the topic at hand, which is lost and how wonderful it is. Anyway, let me continue. Antibiotics alone add roughly 20 years to our life expectancy worldwide. Without them, surgery of any kind would be life-threatening, cancer treatment wouldn't be survivable, and the smallest of injuries could lead to eventual drawn-out and painful death. Viruses are controllable, but a world without working antibiotics will be a nightmarish trip into the brutal history of humanity we thought was left behind. Anywho, loving the podcast. Keep up the great work. Crossing my fingers that total antimicrobial resistance doesn't happen before all 6 seasons are done. Love from across the pond, Lacey J.
Can you imagine we were experiencing, the viral breakdown of the world and we were still recording our podcast week to week?
Buddy, all that says to me is another lockdown and more time to record more content for our listeners.
I'm in, baby. I'll be recording this podcast as the fucking meteor is hurtling towards the earth. Thanks for emailing, Lacey. And can I just say what a great time we had appearing on Lost the Plot. We appeared on their pre-recorded video episode this week, but we also recorded a full episode of their podcast that's not going to air till August. But goddamn, what a blast that was.
Yes, Dave, we did have a great time appearing on Lost the Plot, as well as their podcast, Lost in My 40s.
Did I say? Jesus. I'm not with it today. I had dinner right before we started recording and I ate a lot and I could just feel like my brain shutting down. It's like monkey has fed, time for sleep.
Your body is using so much energy digesting the food. It's not using that energy in your brain today. It's okay. It's not your fault.
Okay, well, add that to the list of podcast preparations. Don't eat right before we record. I'm gonna find the perfect formula eventually.
So, Dave, I'm afraid I've got a little bit of bad news for you.
Oh, you do? What's that?
And I'm sorry to reveal this live in the air, but that's the last email we've got in our inbox.
Oh. So now I regret berating people for correcting us. At least we had something.
The only way you listeners are going to hear that snazzy little piece of music for the segment is if we get emails. So y'all know what to do. As Dave said, losttheplotlads@gmail.com.
Maybe there's been like a mass movement and mutiny among our listeners where they're like, if we don't send in emails, the episodes won't be as long.
And if you do send in an email, please keep it on topic with Lost and stop correcting us. We know we're stupid.
It doesn't have to be on Lost. We'll talk about anything, but try think of it like inspiring discussion.
Ooh, yeah, inspiring discussion. What would you say is your perfect Sunday? That kind of shit. But all of that aside, Dave, what do you think? I believe it's time to go.
Back to the island.
So this week we are reviewing Lost Season 1, Episode 15, Homecoming.
A nice little, I guess, a tongue-in-cheek title.
Yeah, a little bit, kind of like the homecoming dance, I guess, as well as it's to do with Claire.
Any hidden meanings you think we're missing?
I think it's a very surface level title.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a little bit of tongue-in-cheek. Directed by our good old friend Kevin Hooks. Remember him?
What's up, Kevin Hooks? I do.
We last saw him directing the episode White Rabbits.
Oh, has it been that long?
Yeah, it has been that long.
Damn. Welcome back, Kevin.
And whose episode was White Rabbit? The flashback?
That was Jack. It was where he was running around the jungle chasing Christian Shepherd.
Yeah, so that was a Kevin Hooks episode as well as this one. And guess what? It's Kevin's only 2 episodes in the whole show.
Whoa.
We never get a Kevin Hooks directed episode again after this.
Hello and goodbye, Kevin Hooks. Shout out, 2 great episodes. Not to spoil, my thoughts at the end, but White Rabbit, I really like that episode. I think I like that a bit more than you. I enjoyed this episode as well. So great directing, Kevin.
I don't think it's a great spoiler to say that you enjoyed this episode, right?
Nah, I guess not.
We are hardcore Lost fans. This show can do no wrong to us.
Yeah. Let's not go crazy here.
So this episode was written by our boy Lindelof.
Hey, the man himself.
Yeah, the man himself. It's always good to have an episode written by him, innit? Although damn near every episode was written by him. Am I right?
Well, he had some input at least. He was the showrunner.
Exactly. That's what I meant.
But I'm trying to track the titles of the episodes here to see if there's any writers that are punnier than other ones. I say I'm trying to track. This is just an idea I came up with just now. What was the last episode Lindelof wrote? Do you know?
I have a feeling it's White Rabbit, although don't quote me on that.
I think it might be whatever the case may be. He co-wrote it with Jennifer Johnson.
Sorry, my bad. Yeah, with Jen Johnson.
Which is kind of a punny title. So I guess it's completely random and not an interesting topic.
So anyway, let's get into this episode. It's lengthy enough. It's action-packed. There's a lot happening in it. Let's just fucking do it, alrighty? So, first thing we get is obviously the previously on Lost, which focuses heavily on Ethan. So we know that this episode's going to be a continuation of that storyline.
Yeah, well, considering the cliffhanger of the last episode where Claire emerged from the bushes, that makes sense.
Exactly. So we're going into this episode knowing that Claire has returned to at least Locke and Boone after being kidnapped by Ethan.
But who knows what those two lunatics are going to do out in the jungle with her. Maybe they'll bring her to the hatch and Locke will fucking feed her ayahuasca.
Yeah, and teach her a lesson. He saw her coming out of the bushes and thought, this is my moment. I can finally teach Claire a fucking lesson.
That's why you don't talk to strangers.
Here's how you express milk. Anyway, so after the previous on Lost, episode opens on Charlie. Claire has returned. There's a whole big kerfuffle. Everyone's rushing over to her as Locke is carrying her in. Yeah.
Yeah, what a fucking tank. He carried her all the way from like, they literally say later on in the episode that they were pretty far out. And Claire can't be all that light. Like, she's a small woman, but she's also heavily pregnant.
Yeah, but keep in mind, when we last saw her at the end of the last episode, she was on her feet. So I presume she got a certain amount of the way and then she collapsed.
Oh, yeah, no, good point.
Locke does say later on in the episode that she collapsed at one point and that's why he carried her, but I don't think he specified when. But yeah, even still, to carry her like that,
yeah, fair play.
what a beast.
And then he just hands her to Jack, and Jack carries her like it's nothing as well, rippling muscles.
Jack takes a look at her. She's unconscious. My biggest takeaway here is that she's still pregnant. I figured her being kidnapped was going to be to do with the baby, for lack of a better word, harvesting the baby from her.
Yeah, Jesus. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's not a crazy stretch to think that. But yeah, no, she looks relatively unharmed, just a little shook.
Yeah, a little shook. She wakes up, sees Jack, sees the gang, and she freaks the fuck out. And that's when she drops the line, "Who are you people?" She doesn't know who anyone is.
Damn, crazy. Great little opening. We get like some foreshadowing for Feral Claire when she starts shouting. And then, the "Who are you people?" I couldn't help but think what a great mid-season opener that had been. Like if they had just come back from a mid-season break.
Yeah.
She's like, "Who are you people?" And half the viewers at home who have forgotten everything over Christmas are like, yeah, good question.
So that leads us into the title card, The Glitch, not saying anymore. And we come to a scene in the jungle. And it's Claire, she's talking to Jack, basically getting checked out by him. She don't remember shit. Last memory she has, she reveals, Jack, is being on the plane to LA from Sydney.
Yeah, that's shitty for Claire. She has to experience the realization that she's a castaway on a deserted island twice. Yeah. Although, from her point of view, it is once if she forgets the first time. So, was that really Claire before? Philosophical questions. And she also like asks, why hasn't someone come to get us? It's been nearly a month. And everyone's just like, ooh, awkward. And they all look away and they won't.
Well, do you know
because nobody fucking knows the answer to that question.
That's so true. I mean, the closest you can get to an answer is explaining about the French signal. And then there's all the shit to do with the monster on the island, the polar bear. Like, imagine you have a friend who literally just started watching Lost on this episode.
Yeah.
The amount of shit you would have to explain to them is insane.
And that's pretty much what they had to do with Claire. Yeah.
Yeah. So we go from that into a funny little scene of Jin and Sun. And I got to ask you, did you have subtitles for this?
Yeah. I don't have subtitles for the entire episode like you do, but obviously there's subtitles for the Korean when it's when it's important for you to understand it, basically.
Okay, because I was wondering about that, because I did have subtitles, but they didn't look like the normal subtitles I have. So I was thinking, is this like specifically to do with the way I'm watching it? Because normally I watch Lost on Disney Plus, but I wasn't able to today because Disney Plus was fucking up with me and I was on a schedule today, boy. So I had to use other means to watch it.
Yar!
Shiver me timbers. So yeah, but it had the subtitles for the Korean dialogue, and I was just wondering, am I gonna have to translate this like I did for the last Korean? Anyway, but no. So it has subtitles, and it's basically Jane asking Sun, "What do you think's going on?" She's like, "Fuck, do I know?"
Is it me though, or is he onto her a little bit?
Do you know what? He asks her, "Do you think the baby's okay?" And she says, "I'm sure the baby is fine."
Yeah, I think she tries to cover her tracks well here, but I think maybe he's noticed a few glances or something like that.
At the end of this conversation, his gaze just lingers on her a bit, like, this bitch is sus. He suspects something. We move on from Jin and Sun to Boone and Locke, and Boone asks Locke questions while having the same info as Locke, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, where do you think she came from? What do you think happened to her? All this kind of shit. And Locke very astutely says to him, you were right beside me, Boone. You know as much as I do. But that doesn't stop Boone.
He's pissed off in this scene. He's acting a bit weird, but also understandably like annoyed because Boone's being a pain in the arse. Locke's in a kind of meditation stance or something. So you got to think he's maybe trying to think. And Boone's just like, are we there yet? The are we there yet equivalent of asking dumb questions.
I think this scene is Boone and Locke processing what's just happened in their own way. Boone is just using Locke because he happens to be there. He's just asking the questions to Locke because he's just there, not because he thinks Locke has the answers or anything. He's talking out. Boone even goes on to say, the guy pretends to be one of us. He drags her through the jungle for almost 2 weeks. She doesn't remember him. Like, of course she doesn't remember him. She just told you that, Boone. But Boone still needs to, voice this. He still needs to pull it out of his head and externalize these thoughts to make sure he's not going crazy or to help make some sense of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. What do you think is the point of this scene narratively? Because like the only thing I can think of is that it's setting Boone up to be sort of useless, ahead of it, what happens to him later in the episode.
I think it's maybe a little bit of that, and also contributing to just how, in the face of the absolutely bizarre, John Locke keeps his cool. He's methodical, meticulous, calculating. He'll just sit there sharpening a fucking knife while the world is going to shit around him. So after that useless little scene, we go into a Charlie scene with Claire, and he's approaching her because remember where we left off with Charlie and Claire? They were good friends. They were, Charlie was trying to hit that, I think, essentially, but he was just being really accommodating to Claire, understood, about the pregnancy, but still showing his interests a little bit. It was like it was more than friendship, but it wasn't quite a relationship. It was like possibly a budding relationship.
Yeah, he was looking after her essentially and sowing the roots of something. And now he has to start all over again.
Yeah, he has to start from square one again, right?
I was thinking, like, what if Charlie started reusing all his old jokes that he's already used? He's like, oh, that Locke guy, 400 knives. Huh?
400 knives.
Or, how are we going to differentiate ourselves from these savages if we don't have how was it I phrased it last time? And she's like, what? He's like, no, nothing.
Oh, I know the scene you're talking about. Oh, if we can't have a good cup of tea.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Anyway. What if he's like trying to reuse all those?
But yeah, he gives Claire her diary, says it might help.
Good move.
Yeah. And do you know what? Isn't it real fucking lucky that the only one who loses their memory also happens to be the only one who kept a diary of their life before losing their memory? That's just convenient right there.
I would have loved if Charlie was like, here's your diary. I didn't read it.
That poor girl is Anne Frank. Everyone's read her diary. And he starts showing her, this is where you sleep. It's quite cozy, all that shit. And he keeps mentioning Ethan, right? Because he's the one that took her. And Claire's like, who's Ethan? And Charlie pauses for a moment. He says, Ethan? Ethan's the bad guy. And I guess, yeah, that's all Claire needs to know.
Yeah.
Anytime she hears the name Ethan, he's the bad guy. We don't like him.
Again, you know what? Maybe this kind of explains the Locke and Boone scene as well, but this wouldn't be the worst episode for someone to just jump in on who's never seen it before. It kind of catches you up on a few things.
Yeah, because Claire has to be caught up on what's happening as well.
She represents the audience in this episode if the audience had never seen the show before. So
because Charlie is getting really chummy with Claire, essentially, she asks him quite point blankly, we're friends? And he says, yeah, we're friends. I mean, he could have just straight up told her, no, we're married, or something like. He could have taken full advantage of that situation, but he's like, no, we're friends. Yeah, that would be pretty gross. That's a real Sawyer move. I don't think Charlie, for all his flaws, has that in him. No, I mean, do you think Sawyer would stoop that low? Really? Well, he basically forced Caton to kissing him by lying and manipulating. So, do you know what? That's absolutely true. Sawyer's a dickhead. So we go from that onto a flashback, one of Charlie's flashbacks. And I'm so regretting hosting this episode because I hate each and every one of these flashbacks.
We get a Charlie flashback and everyone's heart sinks.
It's not even Charlie's flashbacks. It's this flashback in particular.
This one here.
No. This episode's series of flashbacks.
Do you know what? I think I preferred these ones to Charlie's first flashbacks because there was just less. I mean, there was a couple of cliche things with addiction and stuff like that, but I thought it was more interesting to study this aspect of his character than his rock star past. His rock star past, I don't give a fuck about.
Really? I find that way more interesting.
Nah, I preferred this.
Okay. Anyway.
Maybe we can get into why as these unfold.
Yeah, do you know what? I do have a little bit of an explanation why I hate them, but I will get into that later, right? So this flashback opens up with Charlie and his friend, quote unquote, Tommy.
Just they love naming characters Tom in this, Tom and Brian.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're really common names. It's not unusual to have,
True.
more than one person with that name.
True.
Tommy asks him, how does that feel, mate? After they've just been snorting something. According to the transcript, the official transcript for the episode, they're snorting heroin.
Yeah, I mean, what else would it be? That's Charlie's addiction. That's been established.
Yeah, I didn't know you could snort heroin.
Yeah, sure. Charlie does it in. Does he?
He gums it.
He gums it. Yeah, no, you're right.
I know he gums it, but I didn't think you could snort it.
Uma Thurman overdoses when she snorts it in Pulp Fiction.
Oh,
but yeah, no, you can snort small bits of it and like weaker cuts of it and stuff like that.
So yeah, to sum up this semi-useless scene, it's basically Charlie and Tommy coming to the end of their heroin supply and they realize they need to get more.
We have one of those classic Lost scenes where it just shows Tower Bridge in the background to imply we in London, innit?
And I'm so glad you called it Tower Bridge because everyone calls it
London
Bridge.
Bridge.
Of course.
Tom's accent is accurate at least, though. That's a London as fuck accent right there.
It really is. And he points out that they're almost out of heroin. And Charlie says, but we're not out yet. Carpe diem, my friend. Tommy gives the great response of, look, save your French for someone who appreciates it. And Charlie says, it's Latin, Tommy. It's Latin. And Tommy gives the fucking greatest line in this whole episode. Well, is it Latin for I've got a pile of money so we could score vast quantities of illicit substances?
That's a very sort of, Guy Ritchie, London Giza style line of dialogue there.
It really is. I mean, no one does it better than Guy Ritchie. I fucking love his movies.
Nah, I would compare Guy Ritchie to like Irish writer Martin McDonagh as well. He wrote In Bruges,
100%.
My favorite movie of all time. Just that kind of snappy, articulate dialogue said by sort of characters you wouldn't expect to be articulate.
So we end that scene with Charlie and Tommy realizing that they need to go out and somehow score more heroin. And it cuts to them in a bar. And this scene has Tommy and Charlie scheming as they're eyeing up a couple of women across the bar, sort of like cheetah hunting fucking gazelle. And Tommy has a girl picked out already. Lucy, what's her name? Hetherington? Something
like that. Some posh shit.
Yeah, Lucy Heatherton, 22. That bitch is not 22. She is.
Yeah, she looks older than me. I mean, I don't mean to be insulting, but she doesn't look 22.
Yeah, you're not fooling anyone, sweetheart. Just graduated from Oxford, lives in Knightsbridge with a dear old dad. What's his name? Francis Heatherton. Yeah, Mr. Francis Price Heatherton, who, my friend, is bloody loaded, right? And basically, the scheme here is Charlie's going to befriend her and get money from the dad somehow. Nick it, coerce it out of him, social engineering, however. That's basically the plan that's been set up here. So Charlie's down for it. He's like, okay, let's fucking do it. He sticks Drive Shaft on the jukebox.
Yeah, I think it's Tommy who does that actually, right? While Charlie's over with the ladies.
Oh, it is Tommy. Yes.
I have the most nitpick. So this is a fuck up by the prop department. And I noticed this. It's not a fuck up. It's just me, like I said, really nitpicking. So if you look at the, it slides down to the card in the jukebox that says Drive Shaft, You All Everybody, and then another song called Drive Shaft, right? If you look above, you see Annie Lennox, and below is Bonnie Raitt.
Right.
The song titles for Annie Lennox and Bonnie Raitt have inverted commas around them. The song titles for Drive Shaft don't. Inconsistent formatting. The prop department, check it out.
Holy
the prop department
shit.
just got an existing jukebox, made their own thing, forgot to check the formatting and then stuck it in.
0 out of 10, literally unwatchable. Holy fuck. Pulls me right out of the episode.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Howard said that though. Among greatness there, Annie Lennox and Bonnie Raitt. Fuck yeah.
and then Drive Shaft shoved into the middle.
Yeah, I thought it was supposed to be an alphabetical. I guess not necessarily, right? Jukebox, there's not really any rhyme or reason to them usually.
No, not usually. So yeah, you're absolutely spot on. It's Tommy requesting the Drive Shaft song on the jukebox while Charlie is over giving the ladies this whole, seriously, ladies, I demand you stop buying me more drinks. I'm a man of high moral standing.
Do you know what? I gotta say, Charlie's banter game is on point here.
Yeah, especially the last line he says to them, I will not be shared like a common curry.
He's quite charming. Like this is, we've berated him for making horrible jokes in the past. I'm on board with this.
Yeah, but the weird thing is, like, you've got 3 women there that are all really clearly into it. Do you reckon they know he's Drive Shaft? Surely, right? That's why they're so interested.
Yeah, I wondered about that because he doesn't. I don't know. I thought they were setting it up when Tommy put on the song for Charlie to go, "Oh, do you know who that is?" But then that didn't happen. So yeah, I couldn't tell if it hadn't been established, if he was actually just avoiding it, which would have been not like the Charlie we know.
I find it incredibly bizarre that the song came on and nothing came of it. It was like a setup with no payoff. Like,
it was a bit weird.
In all previous episodes, we have Charlie chasing every woman on the island going, I was in Drive Shaft.
The only thing I can think of is I don't think they mentioned it before. So maybe it was establishing a timeline like, this is already past Drive Shaft's prime.
Yeah, it actually is past Drive Shaft's prime because we do get confirmation of that later in the episode,
yeah,
right?
But I guess that's, they're placing the timeline. Like this is after everybody, after Charlie's last flashback episode, except the last flashback, which takes place after this one.
So after Charlie refuses to be shared like a common curry, we come back to the island. We've got Saeed, Jack, Charlie, and Locke.
I had written down here, we have a Jack, Locke, Saeed power huddle, the Council of Legends, plus Charlie. What a spare prick he is here. Like arguably the 3 best leaders on the island, 3 powerhouses of just pure capability and skill. And we have the little fucking English rat beside them.
Yeah, the little hobbit himself. But you see, the thing is, I don't think Charlie was invited to this little DEFCON meeting. He just weasels his way in because it's to do with Claire and he feels a connection to her. Like he's responsible for her in some way, right?
They started the meeting and then nobody noticed Charlie was there. And when he piped up, they were too awkward to tell him to leave.
Yeah, but Charlie gets really offended when Saeed makes the proposition that Claire might possibly be acting and she's acting as a spy for Ethan, right? Now, I can understand Charlie getting offended by this, but like he greatly overreacts. It's just a possibility to be discussed by the council, right?
Yeah. And it illustrates clearly why Charlie shouldn't be here because he goes, "You're off your head, mate." And then Jack goes, Charlie calms down. He goes, "That's a stretch, Saeed." They're pretty much saying the same thing.
Yeah, Jack, diplomatic as always.
So Charlie decides to fuck off to the delight of everyone.
Now the kid's gone. But they do reckon that it is most likely to be genuine amnesia, right? They do come to that agreement. Jack says that it is entirely possible, given the amount of trauma that Claire has suffered, that her memory has just reset to the crash. Almost his words exactly, right? So once Charlie's fucked off from that, he bumps into Jin, who's just walking along with his fishing net, doing his thing. And Charlie wants to go back to the caves with Jin and says something in Korean to him. Says Annyeong, I think.
Says Annyeong, yeah. Did you, have you watched Arrested Development?
I have not watched Arrested Development. No.
Okay, because the word Annyeong, the Korean word Annyeong, is that'll mean something to anyone who's watched it.
Why? What's it got to do with that?
I mean, not to explain the joke, but just really quickly, there's a character in Arrested Development, a little Korean kid that the mother adopts to make her other son jealous. And he keeps saying Annyeong, which is Korean for hello. And then they think that that's his name.
Fucking brilliant.
I wouldn't have brought up Arrested Development only for another moment in this episode later on also reminded me of Arrested Development. So because there's 2, I'm like, fuck it, I have to bring it up.
Brilliant. Charlie continues talking to Jin in, committing the same offense that Kate did before, of just talking to him as if he's, the house dog or something.
Yeah, I wrote that down as well. He's doing the Kate thing. He's shiting on in English to obnoxiously to someone who doesn't care.
Yeah, to Jin, who has no idea what he's saying.
I love that Charlie berates. He's telling him like, "Oh, you're lucky. You don't have to make any decisions." He's basically berating him for not being involved. As Jin carries a fucking fishing net, like that motherfucker is contributing way more than Charlie is.
I don't think he's actually berating Jin because he knows Jin can't understand him. He's just using his conversation with Jin, conversation in air quotes, as a form of therapy almost. Like he's just airing his grievances out loud and someone hears them, even if they don't understand them.
No, I agree. I don't think he was really saying that Jin wasn't contributing, but just the way he phrased it at first, I was like, the cheek of this little cunt.
But they're interrupted by the sound of what I can only describe as whirring. Like it kind of sounds like a thumping at first, but then it picks up speed and it kind of sounds like a helicopter rotor or something. It's just
I had no fucking idea what this was at first.
Once it picked up speed, I had a fair idea what it was, and I was absolutely correct. When Jin gets absolutely walloped with a rock, someone's after slinging a rock at him.
Where does he get hit? Just in the head?
No, it's in his shoulder.
Oh, okay. I thought it was his neck for a second, like his windpipe, and I was like, "Fucking hell!"
No, he just gets clocked in the shoulder with a rock.
But he's pretty incapacitated either way.
Yeah, he's fucking walloped by this projectile anyway. And when Charlie's distracted, looking down, distracted by Jin falling over, who emerges from the bushes? Ethan.
Oh, looking so menacing.
Yeah, marches up to Charlie and just says to him, that he wants her back. Doesn't even use her name. I want her back. And Charlie's like, what? He's so confused by this. Ethan's just come up so suddenly. And Ethan just walks up to him, grabs him by the neck, holds him against a tree, and like Superman, lifts him up like one hand around his neck.
What a fucking unit.
Holy shit. Like he's demonstrated his speed, power, agility in the past. This guy is physically just above everyone on the island. So
it's crazy. You wouldn't think it because he looks fairly weedy.
Doesn't he? Like he's a kind of a lanky, not very strong looking dude, like you'd pick him last for the football team.
He's a lanky string of piss.
But he explains to Charlie a little bit more in depth exactly what he wants. He says, you bring her here, and if you don't, I'm going to kill one of them being one of the survivors, presumably. And says, for every day you don't bring her to me, I'm going to kill somebody.
Fucking wild.
Yeah, I'm going to fucking kill someone. And then he fucks off. Oh, sorry. Not before telling Charlie he will kill him last.
Yeah, that bit is bone chilling. Like it's fucking awesome. It's really great, villain dialogue.
I don't think you have to, given the amount of survivors on the island. As soon as you get down to like the last 20, I think they'll just hand Claire over. Like, get real.
Yeah, it's an intimidation tactics though, isn't it? And it works.
100%. We go from that scene to Locke, Charlie, and Jack discussing this little incident with Ethan. Jack wants to move everyone to the caves, basically, discussing with Locke, what's the game plan? What do we do next? And Locke thinks that that's a shit idea.
Jack will take any fucking excuse. He's like, hey, how about those caves? Huh?
Yeah. It's like he's being paid by the management team for the caves.
Honest to God.
This episode sponsored by the caves. And Locke very astutely points out that is possibly just gathering everyone in one area so Ethan can come and slaughter them all. Ethan and whatever army he's got waiting in the bushes, if he has such an army. We then go from that into another discussion between Jin and Sun.
This is a nice little insight into Jin's experience here, like on the island in general.
It is, but I'm really strongly reminded of like two sports commentators just basically commentating on what's been happening. But instead, it's just Jin asking Sun, what's going on? Sun's asking him, what's going on? And they're like,
yeah, it's a big gamble. Let's see if it pays off for him.
So we go from that short little scene of Jin and Sun not knowing fucking anything to Claire and Charlie. Claire wants to know why everyone is avoiding her. And Charlie kind of feigns ignorance here. And she's like, no one will talk to me. Just feels like something is going on. Because she obviously hasn't been told about the Ethan threat again yet. So Claire is asking Charlie, what's going on? Something's happening. People are staring at me. Obviously something is going on. And Charlie's just like, nope, nothing's happening. Everything's cool here. Nothing going on. You're all good.
What do you think? Right move?
No. I think he should have told her.
I can see it from his perspective, though. You know, she's been through a lot, and to put this pressure on her, then to make her feel bad for something that she doesn't even remember. And not that, I mean, he wouldn't be trying to make her feel bad, but I think Claire, just by her very nature, would feel bad.
I can see where he's coming from, but I still don't think it's the right move because something like that, she is going to find out inevitably.
Yeah, and it just makes him look bad then.
Yeah, she is just going to find out at some stage anyway. And as you say, it will 100% make him look bad. So no, I don't think he should have lied to her. But that is just my opinion. So we cut from that to a flashback of Charlie being brought home by the targeted Lucy Heatherton.
There's a line here that made my fucking skin crawl when Charlie said it. Where he says, invite me back for tea or something. And he goes, if you meant sex, say sex.
You know, if you want to invite me back for sex, don't say tea, say sex.
No. But the way he says those last two words, he goes, say sex. It just made my skin crawl. It was fucking horrible. It was horrific.
I'm going to be honest with you, Dave. I didn't pick up on it because I hate this flashback so much. I watched it on mute.
Really?
Yep.
Why?
Because there's something about it, right? So to sum up this scene, basically, he's after being brought back with this Lucy. She offers to make him tea. And while she's in the kitchen, he's eyeing up the living room for any valuables he can steal. Because that's the game. That's the plan. Steal something valuable, sell it for money to buy illicit substances with. And there's something about a scene like that where he's trying not to get caught and he's lying to her. I don't know. It's like secondhand embarrassment, but it's not embarrassment. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just waiting for him to get caught, even though I know he won't. I don't know. It made me so uncomfortable.
So it's the tension. That's a pretty effective scene then.
Yeah.
Did you catch the reference when she says that her father's buying a paper company up in Slough?
No. Paper company up in Slough?
That is a reference to the British Office.
No way. Is that set in Slough?
It's set in Slough, which I believe is somewhere near or in Wigan. I'm not really, my English geography is not that good. But yeah, no, it's J.J. Abrams was a fan apparently, and Lindelof as well. And that is, I said it to my friend who's a massive Office fan and he likes Lost as well. I was like, I never caught this reference before this watch through. And he said that that's one of a few references to the British Office.
Oh, that is a fucking brilliant reference. I love it.
But yeah, funny enough, the US Office had not aired yet at the time this came out. It would air later that year, I think. I think it started in 2005 and this episode aired.
And completely leave the British Office in the dirt with its popularity.
Well, its popularity for sure, yeah. Different beasts, I would say. Both shows, both enjoyable for their own reasons.
Yeah, I mean, season 1 of The American Office really tries to emulate the
and
UK
it doesn't
one.
work at all.
No, it doesn't. The first season is absolute dog muck, but then it realizes it can be its own thing, sort of, and it embraces it much to its benefit. But we're not here to talk about that particular TV show. Not at all. We're talking about Lost. And in this scene, while Lucy is making a cup of tea, Charlie is, as I said, he's eyeing up the valuables and he spots a little silver cigarette case with some generic English regalia on it.
I'll tell you, Lucy's dad sounds like a colonialist prick.
Yeah, because when it's revealed, when Lucy comes back, you know, she sees him looking at the cigarette case. She says it was Winston Churchill's. Dad collects all sorts of rubbish from great leaders of the empire. You just know that they vote Tory.
Yeah, 100%.
Related to that, I'll tell you a funny story. And this literally happened last night, right? So I was being driven back to the train station by my mother. And for some reason, talking about trains, we got talking about this guy that's on Instagram and TikTok, the train spotting guy, the English guy. Have you seen him?
No, I don't think so.
Holy shit.
Do you mean he literally spots trains or he's from the movie Train Spotting?
No. He spots trains like as a hobby.
Okay.
And he's gained this huge popularity online. I think if I remember correctly, it's like Francis Bourgeois is his name. Real posh English accent on him. And the dude is like, I couldn't place an age on him. I'm going to say 30s, right? I couldn't even tell you early or late 30s. But he has this childlike excitement when he sees trains. And he has this really bizarre camera that is head mounted, but points to his face as well and shows his face in this weird warped triangular fashion. And it's
I think
it is hilarious. But we were discussing him in the car last night, and I just said, just profiling him because of his accent and the fact that he has so much time to go and spot trains. I was like, oh, this guy's upper class. Like, he votes Tory. and my girlfriend says, oh, I wouldn't be too harsh on him, just from the way he acts. I mean, he seems to be a bit maybe on the spectrum, like he's a little bit, autistic or something, or he's got some sort of a learning disability. And my mother, without batting an eye, says, I think that's the same as voting Tory.
Wrecked.
Holy shit.
As if you don't mind me saying, you're a neurodivergent, right? So you can sign off on that joke.
Yeah, I was. For anyone who doesn't know me, ADHD, diagnosed Asperger syndrome, or as it's now just known these days, autism spectrum disorder. So I've got a pass on these kind of jokes. But holy shit, like I did not expect a joke like that from my mother, saying that Tory voters are. Oh, do you know what? I shouldn't even say that. She told me not to tell a soul she made that
No,
joke.
it's good. It's okay. She's not aware of this podcast. Shout out to your mom, though. That's fantastic. Is she aware of the train guy?
No, she's no idea who the train guy is.
Okay, good. Yeah, because I think of your man. Apologies if this is inaccurate, but I just think of her as one of the least online people in the world. Like,
oh, her iPad is a 600 euro Facebook machine. 100%.
Yeah.
Like she's not an online person. She barely knows what Instagram is. But I know for a fact, like I know my mother, she does not believe that the whole Tory voters have a mental disability. No, this is something that I do, and I totally picked it up from my mother. If I see an opportunity for a joke, I will take it, regardless of what it is.
Dude, you are preaching to the choir here. I mean, listen to how many times I cut you off in this podcast just to slip in my fucking shite.
A perfect example of this is if you go to our Instagram page and listen to the clip. Well, basically, Dave, where I asked you, would you dump your girlfriend for 50,000? I said that I would do it for 20 euros at a McDonald's. I would dump my girlfriend. That is obviously not true. Okay. I'm sorry to break hearts out there, but no, it's not true. I love my girlfriend very much. It would take a lot more than 50 grand to actually dump her.
A McDonald's, however,
Ooh.
you'd be tempted.
Happy Meal needs to have the toy in it. I'm sorry. I've got standards. So where were we? Oh, yes. Lucy comes back, sees him eyeing up the cigarette case, reveals it was Winston Churchill's. And Charlie's like, oh, like in his head, he's thinking that's pretty fucking valuable. Lucy says, her dad collects all sorts of stuff from leaders of the empire. Hey, you should meet him. And Charlie's like, Winston? No, thanks. I heard he's quite moldy. Good banter. Good banter. I like it. So we go from that flashback. We're back on the island. Kate just comes up to Jack, says, hey, you look hungry, chucks him some fruit, and they just start discussing Ethan, right?
Jack is trying to get into like a Locke mindset here because he's sharpening a knife. I think he feels a bit castrated by him from that scene where he basically out-logicked Jack on what they should do, and now Jack's like, maybe if I sharpen a knife, I'll think like Locke too.
He's trying to get into the Locke mindset, bring out his inner John Locke. So Kate brings up the idea to Jack of, hey, there is a guy threatening our group of survivors. We have guns. You should use the guns.
And Jack has channeled his inner Locke here because he's quite sensible with his gun safety attitude here. It's like, I'm not putting guns into the hands of untrained shooters, wielders. I can't remember what phrasing he uses. But
he just says he refuses to put guns in untrained hands.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, pretty smart.
Yeah, because, someone has a gun, they hear a rustling in the bushes, they get scared, pop one off, someone gets hurt. I can totally see the logic in that, but no, I'm sorry, Jack. There are people who are trained in gun safety in the group. Not that fucking many of them, but you don't have that many fucking guns.
I can see why he was hesitant at first, and to jump ahead a little bit, he does a 180 on that attitude, and I can see why he does it then as well. I think it makes sense at this point.
So after Jack makes his point about the guns, we cut to the beach. We've got Saeed, Boone, and Locke basically making tripwire traps around the perimeter.
They're setting up Home Alone traps, basically.
Well, not really. The Home Alone traps, as seen in the movie, are designed with the clear intent of killing a motherfucker. These are just to alert, like just to drop a bag of rubbish, to create some noise, to alert people, hey, someone's tripped a wire over there. And I get it. It's a reasonable precaution to take, but there's no way Ethan would fall for that shit.
Yeah, that's fucking stupid. Because they know that he's like covering his tracks. He's like Locke even points it out later. Like he's got home field advantage here. They're on his terrain. He's more careful than that.
Oh my God, he's on X Games mode. Like, Ethan is so above and beyond the capabilities of everyone here. They think they're going to catch him out with a tripwire. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
not a chance. So they start saying that they're going to put up 4 of them around the perimeter. Saeed says he's got fires prepared at 20-meter intervals, to keep the place lit during the night. And Saeed says that some of the men have volunteered for sentry duty. He's going to put them on rotating shifts. Boone wants to take a shift. Saeed's like, dope. Locke is like, yeah, attaboy, Boone. Slap on the arse, well done. We go back to the caves. Charlie wants Claire in a safer position, basically. He's talking to Jack and he says, we should move Claire, put her somewhere safe.
One thing I noticed from this scene, and it's not relevant at all, but everybody is really sweaty in this episode.
It's a hot island, okay? You can't blame them.
Yeah, I know, of course, but it's realistic. But
It's actually an incredibly clever reference to one of the last episodes where Hurley says that they were playing for the last of the deodorant sticks. If we're out of deodorant, dude,
Yeah.
what do you expect?
no more antiperspirant, so now they're all bucketing.
I know, they're all sweatier than Prince Andrew in this. Oh, sorry, too soon?
I don't believe he sweats, actually. He's got a medical condition that prevents him from sweating.
Anywho, so Charlie is so gung-ho about being involved in Claire's safety because he tells Jack that it was his fault that Claire was taken. He was responsible. He should have taken care of her. And Jack is like, dude, shut the fuck up. Nothing's going to happen, all right? Charlie's like, okay. How wrong Jack would be. We go back to another flashback, and it's the dinner scene. Charlie is having dinner with Lucy and her super rich fucking dad. And the dad is basically just dropping the strongest of hits. He's almost explicitly saying it that being a musician, it's not a long-term goal. You need to be more practical. Make some fucking money. Be respectable. Be responsible.
What do you make of his old band's name? The Protestant Reformation.
The Protestant Reformation. That, well, do you know what? I was about to rag on it, but it's not the worst.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I kind of at first just dismissed it out of hand, without really thinking about it. Like, oh, okay, here we go, Tory name for a band. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought the Protestant Reformation is a pretty good name for a band.
Yeah, it's not the worst.
I could see that some alternative rock band,
Yeah.
Some Brian Jonestown Massacre style. I don't know.
Yeah, you'd listen to Protestant Reformation, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would.
So the other thing we learn in this scene is Charlie kind of just starts making a big run-on confession about how Driveshaft is on hiatus.
Yeah, he basically opens up to this random cunt about his relationship with his brother. Fucking TMI.
Well, I mean, sometimes if you want to open up about stuff that means a lot to you, it can be harder to do it to someone because you'll fear their judgment, whereas an absolute stranger, you don't give a fuck what they think.
Yeah, you're right. And maybe, Charlie's, all his friends at this point have got to be addicts, right? So he never gets a chance to open up. So the second he gets to, he just starts spilling. Yeah, that tracks. Criticism rescinded.
So that scene cuts into another scene, still in a flashback here, after the dinner, where it's Tommy and Charlie once again in the pub, like 2 old lads on a fucking British soap. And Tommy's like, you took a sodding what? And Charlie's like, a job, Tom. And Tommy says, a job doing what? And Charlie's like, selling copiers.
Yeah, he mentions at the dinner scene that he was thinking of recording a solo album. He fucking gives up on that idea fairly lightly.
Yeah.
Fucking not, sell copiers instead.
No, I don't think he was genuinely considering a solo album. I think he was trying to save face, like, oh, I'm a musician and my career's floundering, but maybe there's hope.
I couldn't help but think I don't know if nepotism is the right word, because I know nepotism is specifically about family members, right? But this fella just gave Charlie a job after having a chat with him at dinner. Surely there should have been some kind of process to go through.
Yeah, these days that wouldn't fly. But nepotism, yeah, do you know what? I would 100% use the word nepotism for this. It is.
I thought maybe it pertains just to your family, but maybe not. Maybe it's a personal relationship or something.
Well, I mean, if Charlie is genuinely in a relationship with Lucy, he's potential family.
There you go.
I guess, right? But Charlie confesses to Tommy that he likes Lucy, and Tommy just says she's a moose.
What a prick.
What a horrible fucking name. She's a pretty woman.
She's very good looking. She's not 22. She's,
I wouldn't say no.
She's pretty.
Yeah, but then Tommy comes out with one of these fucking horrible, what do you call it? Britishisms, Englishisms, where he says, "You're off, you bleeding chump, man."
I don't mind that one so much. I hate the word sodding. I'm pretty sure I pointed that out before. But
yeah, he says that earlier in the scene as well. I've been getting you off of my skag for over a week now on spec. Spec means speculation. Yes, I know what it means. Yeah, it's a great little line. It gives me a chance to practice my accent, which is still fucking shocking. I'm aware.
Do you know if the lady who plays Lucy is American? I'm guessing she is because that accent seemed really bad to me as well.
I was going to say that as well.
Lucy's is the worst. Everyone else is passable. I'm pretty sure the guy who plays Tommy's English. Pretty sure your man who played the dad even was English, but Lucy, ugh, not good.
Lucy's accent was really dodgy to me, and I had a suspicion of where I thought she was from because I thought I could hear it coming through, and it turns out I am spot on. Lucy Heatherton is played by Sally Strecker, who is from Australia.
Ah, they couldn't have just got her to play one of the Australian characters.
Nope.
There's some bad Aussie accents in this show. Why didn't they just? Okay, whatever.
So the whole point of this scene, anyway, is that Tommy says to Charlie, look, you ain't got no money for any more fucking heroin. It's Friday today. Your job starts Monday. You're not going to be able to get a fix over the weekend. So steal something because you're going to want to get that fix into you, boy, you know?
He's basically saying, like, you're a heroin addict who wants to go to work on Monday. Fucking good luck.
Yeah, because as Tommy quite prophetically tells Charlie, you go to work on Monday to an actual fucking job without getting a fix over the weekend. Yeah, you're fucked. It should be bloody wonderful. So we go from that. We are on the island and security's on full patrol. We've got Boone, Locke, Saeed.
Night has fallen.
Yeah, night has fallen and Boone is struggling to stay awake on his shift.
What a dumbass. Why didn't he stand up? That's what I would have done.
Do you know what? It does help. It does help. As someone who did work night shifts before and has struggled when 4 a.m. hits, like there actually does come a point where if you remain still in a seated position, there is nothing you can do. If your body wants sleep badly enough, it will fucking take it.
I used to do it. I remember in lockdown 2020, if I'd be watching a movie relatively late at night on the couch and, you know, I'd start drifting off. If there was like half an hour left in the movie and I'm like, I really want to see this, I would just stand up and watch the rest of it standing.
Yeah, 100%. That works because your body's not going to fall asleep while you're awake or while you're standing, I mean. So anyway, the fight against sleep is a losing battle for Boone. He ends up nodding off anyway. And all of a sudden, it's daytime. There's clatter from the tripwire. Boone runs like a fucking caveman wielding a spear. Can't see shit.
Him falling asleep and waking up. It's not like I've seen this in other things before, but it is really well filmed, edited, and directed. Like it does really capture that feeling of I just closed my eyes for a second, you know.
And then all of a sudden, it's just daytime. Like the sun's not even coming up. It is well up, whatever time this is at. But nobody bothered to even check on Boone. Like, are they not patrolling? I thought they were patrolling.
Yeah. I thought they mentioned shifts. Was he supposed to have a shift the entire night?
Yeah, and no one came to relieve him?
Boone is dumb, but her plan was also evidently dumb.
Clearly a little bit flawed. Boone goes running in the direction of the sound. He trips over, and who comes out to greet him? Vincent!
Vincent's back.
Turns out that was Vincent.
Funny, you never see Vincent and the smoke monster in the same room.
Yeah, so Saeed and Locke come over, and they're like, oh, you know, false alarm, it's Vincent. Only to hear screaming from the beach.
Oof.
And when they get there, lo and behold, they're a red shirt down. There's a motherfucker dead on the shore.
Red shirt down.
And it's revealed that Ethan came in from the water.
What the fuck? I came in from the water?
Creature from the Black Lagoon or what?
What the fuck? How does that work? How did he escape through the water? How did he how did he kill someone while sopping wet? I don't understand that. I don't buy it.
It's the only way he could have done it. It's the only way he could have done it.
So he went up the beach and just sort of doubled back in a circle. Like
this is why I figured they were on the beach because they don't need to, you know, set up a perimeter around 4 sides, just 3 because they've got the water to their backs, right?
Yeah.
But no, cunt came in from the water.
Did he swim out? Is he hanging out with fucking Janet or whatever her name was, who's manning the Looking Glass station?
Oh, the Looking Glass. Sorry.
Yeah. But Ethan, presuming it was Ethan who committed this crime, he absolutely fucking throttled this red shirt because Kate says that his neck was broken, his arms were broken, his fingers were broken.
Yeah, and I fully believe that that's just to send a message to them that he means business. He's not just killing them. He is going to torture them before they die. But Surely he broke all the bones after he died. Otherwise, the dude would have screamed, right?
Yeah, he must have, because I still can't really buy this. So he emerges from the water. Is he like in the nip? Like he wouldn't. He can't have worn clothes because that would have slowed him down, right?
For aerodynamic purposes.
So he runs up. Do you know what? Come to think of it, I think the scream is from someone who finds the body, right?
Yeah,
not from
it
the
is.
person being attacked. Yeah. So he breaks his neck. And then takes I don't know.
Goes through the time to break his arms and all the bones in his fingers.
Yeah, fair enough.
And as the red shirt is being carried off, Sawyer says, so Steve drew the short straw, and Hurley corrects him, dude, that was Scott. Once again, referencing the joke that nobody knows the difference between Scott and Steve on this island.
I can't believe one of them dies this early, though. I don't know why I thought the Scott and Steve thing went on longer.
I thought they survived so much longer. It's not even that much of a thing, like the whole confusion between Scott and Steve. It's not that much of a thing on the show. But as we discussed in a previous episode, it is behind the scenes. Like nobody knows who they are, or at least the difference between them, I should say. So apparently it's Scott that's dead. We cut to his funeral, and Hurley's giving a sort of a eulogy, I guess, and basically gives a couple of statements about Scott before wrapping up and saying, sorry, I kept calling you Steve, man.
Yeah. And we have a little reveal here as well, which I don't know if you remember this. I brought this up, I think it was 2 episodes ago, where I was talking about how everyone was in Australia for a dramatic reason. And I was like, why can't we have a character that was just on holiday? Scott was on holiday. He won an all expenses paid trip to Australia in a work competition.
Worst holiday ever.
Yeah, that ended badly.
So yeah, Hurley's just like amen, I guess. Everyone goes amen, and Hurley's like, I don't know how to end these.
And Michael's standing beside me, just gives him this sort of like, don't worry about it, man. You did all right.
I mean, Hurley did good, right?
Yeah, it was fine. I wouldn't really know how to end something like that either.
I'm gonna put that in my will that I want Jorge Garcia to give my eulogy, and I'm going to ask his permission when he comes on this podcast and drinks tins with us.
Boom. 2022 is going to happen.
Gonna happen. 100%. I'm going to make sure it happens.
What an incredible eulogy that would be. It would be the funeral that everyone wants to attend.
We're gonna miss you, Dave. Dude, that was 8-0. Boom.
Nice.
So we go to a shot of Claire walking to the spring in the caves, the water, and all the red shirts are just staring at her. I mean, they're unnamed characters. They are red shirts, right?
Yeah, that's what we're calling them.
And Claire just kind of gets pissy, marches up to Shannon, and she's like, why is everyone staring at me? And Shannon's like, I'm not staring at you. What's your name? Shannon. Shannon, you're staring. I love the way Claire does that. It's kind of like a bossy little girl, the way she says it to her. Also, I apologize. I cannot do an Australian accent. It's never happening.
Shannon, you're staring.
Yeah. Thank you. Perfect. So we're left hanging on the interaction between Claire and Shannon before we see Claire marching up to Charlie. Why did you lie to me? She says to him. And he's not even going to try and be like, oh, lied about what? He's just like, okay, look, I just thought with your memory, there wasn't anything you could do. Like, he does try and defend himself kind of weakly, but it sours the budding relationship, the rebudding relationship between them. And, he just wanted to take care of her, but Claire says, I can take care for myself, and leaves him hanging there. Brings us back into another flashback. We have got... Okay, so of all of the flashbacks in this episode, I know I said I hate them all, but I don't mind this one so much because I just find it hilarious. It's Charlie getting ready for his first day at work.
Come here now. This is a bit much. Haven't these two been on 2 dates and she's fucking prepping him for work?
I assume that there has been more dates, but we just haven't seen them, that they've skipped over a bit of time, maybe?
Yeah, maybe. Because I know the first date was the first scene where he goes back to her house. And then she's like, do you want to meet my dad for dinner tomorrow? Which is presumably their second date.
Ooh. Did she say tomorrow?
I can't remember exactly, but she implies it's like soon.
She says that he's coming home tomorrow. You should come round for dinner.
Even still, it seems a bit much. But anyway, go on.
So I love this flashback because Charlie's getting ready for his first day at work, and Lucy has bought him a suit. His girlfriend has bought him a suit, and she's basically, fixing his collar, and it's like, oh, you look so handsome, like his mum on his first day of school, like a little boy.
Yeah.
It's so emasculating, right? And I don't think she realizes that.
Yeah, nah. But he's like sweating balls as well.
Oh, he is looking rough. Like he's going through a really hard withdrawal here, and you can just see it.
I don't know how she doesn't notice. I mean, she kind of goes like, "Oh, you okay?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah, I'm just nervous." But like, this dude does not look well.
Yeah, I mean, he tries to pass it off as nervousness, but she's not really paying that much attention. He says that you didn't have to buy me this suit, and she says, "What did you intend on wearing on your first day of work?" He just says, "I have shirts with buttons." This is a great little line.
That's pretty much my attitude to every job interview.
Yeah, as long as I've got a shirt with buttons, I'm golden. Especially with the height difference between them, like this really shows just how short Charlie is compared to her.
Yeah.
He really does look like her little hairy son about to go to school. It's true though, right?
Nah, 100%.
But she says she's got something else for him, leaves, and Charlie essentially swipes the cigarette case, stuffs it into a suit jacket pocket, and she returns with a briefcase, right?
Damn, though, that is a nice briefcase. Like, it's a picture perfect briefcase.
I would love a briefcase like that. But anyway, he wants to get a cab to the job, and she insists on driving him. Do you think he was going to skip the job and just make off with the cigarette case?
Oh, yeah, that didn't occur to me. You're probably right, though. What I thought was that he just didn't want to have to be around her any longer because the guilt was eating him up. But yeah, no, you're probably
I'd
right.
say that's it, yeah. Because he does look so guilty, right?
Yeah.
We come back to the caves and we've got Jack and Locke, right? Jack wants Locke to track Ethan, and Locke has been a little bit more practical. He says he doesn't want to go after Ethan because Ethan's bested them at every turn. Going after him is essentially a suicide mission. He doesn't say that, but that's the message he's getting across, right?
Rock in a hard place here. Lock in a hard place. Here.
Locke in a hard place. Love it. But yeah, Locke says, he's not a cold man. He says he's not a cold man, but then he says, I feel the loss of one of our own. I mean, his name was Scott, okay?
And like, it's good. It's a good thing Jack jumps in with the guns thing here, because is Locke seriously starting to consider that maybe they should give Claire back?
I think so. I don't want to admit it, but I think that's a possibility.
I think he thinks that they at least have to have that conversation at some point.
Yeah. But Locke makes the point that we're on Ethan's turf. He's bested them at every turn. He has the advantage. And Jack's all like, well, what if I told you I had a way to get the advantage back? And brings Locke out and shows him the guns, the little attaché briefcase, the key to which is just around Jack's neck.
Yeah, fair. Safekeeping, I guess.
Yeah, one of the safest places to keep it.
But Jack asks Locke if he knows how to handle one of these, and Locke does this really slick, like he just does everything you basically can do with a gun in your hands without shooting it.
Yeah, he takes it off Jack, checks the barrel, checks the magazine, looks down the sight, and grins.
And to make the second pun related to his name, lock and load. I was expecting to say like that smile and then lock and load and then sunglasses fall down out of nowhere.
So we come back to the caves and we've got Charlie, Locke, Jack, and Saeed. And it's revealed here that the plan is to use Claire as bait. And really surprisingly to me, Claire is up for it because she makes the logical argument that it's kind of her fault that Ethan's coming after them. It's her that they want. And if there's anything she can do to possibly stop anyone else getting hurt, she's going to do it, right?
Yeah. I mean, fault is the wrong word because it sounds a little victim blamey, but it's
true.
She is the deciding factor in whether or not Ethan leaves him alone. And yeah, you know what? I'm not that surprised that Claire volunteers because I really admire Claire's attitude to everything. She's always very emotionally mature and she knows her place. And I don't mean that in like a know your place woman sort of way, but she knows her limit. But I think when Claire can help, she does.
Yeah, because she's been spending her entire time being pregnant. That if there's anything she can do to actually be helpful, she will be helpful.
Yeah, she's pragmatic. So
Charlie insists on going with them because he says there are 4 guns. And Locke's all like, have you ever fired a weapon before, Charlie? And Jack is like, all right, we should do this. Figure out a game plan. Saeed, you're the soldier. Locke, you're the hunter. I mean, what is Jack doing here assigning roles to this? What is this all about? I mean, they're essentially just trying to set an ambush for Ethan. What's with these titles? But
yeah,
anyway.
they end up not really mattering a shite in the final showdown anyway.
quickly go back to a flashback. Charlie goes to use. Listen, I'm summing this up quickly. I had to pause, or not pause. I had to mute this scene. I could not listen to it. I hated watching it. I secondhand cringe and embarrassment.
So you didn't get the music then?
No.
Okay, because this was my second Arrested Development reference. The music it's not a direct reference, I don't think, but the music along with the montage of him trying to get the copier to work is a very Arrested Development style scene. They kind of do these comedic little, they're often flashbacks themselves. Like earlier on, such and such had been doing this, and then it'll flash back to this little like ukulele music and a montage of someone fucking up, basically.
So it's Charlie in a boardroom in front of like these really important suit wearing people and says, "Allow me to demonstrate the awesome speed of this fucking thing." And a guy takes out like a stopwatch or something.
Yeah. I thought that maybe that guy was with Charlie. Like he wasn't a guy who worked in the office. He was sort of his partner, and he's like, okay, you give the presentation, I'll be here with the watch. It's sort of his backup. I don't know why. It's just the way that Charlie looks at him. That's what I kind of thought, but it could just be a really fucking anal office manager as well.
Yeah, that's what I took it to be. Just a guy who works with the company, and he's just like, okay, sales boy, let me see what you fucking got. So Charlie then tries to use it and demonstrate the speed of it, despite having clearly never used one before, because everything that can fucking go wrong with it does go wrong. And more, because he ends up puking into the fucking thing because of his withdrawal. He just gets so nauseous, he vomits all over the damn thing.
Yeah.
It's a hard scene to watch, and I could not have the sound on. The only reason I didn't skip it is because I had to watch it for research purposes for this fucking show. So after that atrocious demonstration of the copier machine, we go back to the island. We've got Charlie and Locke and Jack. And we're picking up immediately from the last scene where Charlie demands a gun.
Yeah, can I just really quick point out that when we cut back from that flashback, it sort of shows Charlie like contemplating for a minute. And I think, I've said this before, that I think my headcanon is when we have flashbacks, the character is thinking about it in that moment, but they kind of make it like heavily imply that that's the case. And, with this one, and I was like, what a time to be remembering puking in a photocopier.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I thought like that flashback stood out to me as like the most awkwardly placed flashback in the entire episode.
It was a bit weird
because they just cut right back to the exact same scene, and I cannot fathom how Charlie is linking that memory to this situation.
It was sort of a comic relief flashback. I think it didn't really serve much more purpose than that.
Comic relief is fine, except they go right back into the same scene with the same level of attention to it. So
yeah,
what's the fucking
weird.
point?
Oddly constructed.
So anyway, coming back into the scene, Locke agrees with Charlie. There are 4 guns, ergo there should be 4 men. And Jack considers this before we rapidly cut to a shot of Sawyer going, "Help! Moi?"
Does he say? I thought he said hell, like hell. Moi?
No, he says help.
Help.
Moi? Yeah, it's hilarious because we think that Jack is considering giving Charlie a gun, and then all of a sudden, Sawyer. Which, I mean, Jack turns to fucking Sawyer. Why?
I don't know. I think it's a good move. As Sawyer points out, there's a polar bear who can attest to his skill with a gun.
Yeah, Jack asks him if he can handle a gun. Well, I know one polar bear seems to think so. And Kate rocks up as Jack hands over the gun. And she reveals that she wants to come along as well. But sorry, no girls allowed because there's not enough guns. Before Sawyer reveals, he's actually got one already and decides to give it to Kate.
Yeah, he says he took it off the marshal back in the old days. And that actually hit home for me because I was like, yeah, that was back when we just started our podcast,
Yeah, back in the good old days, yeah.
Back in the old days of the first half of season 1 of Lost the Plot.
And you can see how raging Jack is because he just handed over one of his guns to Sawyer when Sawyer already had one.
And Sawyer's woke as fuck, handing it to Kate because nobody even considered her. But having said that, it did... Like maybe it was the nostalgia talk from Sawyer. It did make me remember that in the pilot, Kate pretended that she didn't know how to use a gun. Now I couldn't remember. Has that been rectified since?
No, and that was actually listed in my goops at the end of this. Nobody questions Kate having a gun, despite the fact she proclaimed not to know how to use one.
The only thing I can think of justifying it is that they've since found out she's a fugitive. So they're like, oh, okay, I guess we can make an assumption now.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I did notice that.
Yeah, Jack is fuming, handing over the gun to Sawyer, but I don't know. I think he's uncomfortable as well. How do I want to phrase this? I don't think Jack is comfortable with not having made that decision.
Yeah,
If
I
he
agree.
knows it's right.
Yeah. And Sawyer does a great thing here where he manages to be helpful and to piss off Jack at the same time, which is a fucking win-win for him. Yeah.
So yeah, meanwhile, Charlie's just off sitting, watching the guys formulate a plan for catching Ethan. Sorry, this is the next scene. You've essentially got like everyone who's trying to hunt Ethan standing around. Locke and Saeed are doing this thing of, you know, drawing lines in the sand. You're going to be here and you're going to be here. From my vague memory of having watched this episode this morning, and Charlie's just sitting there and he's kind of fuming because he wants to be in on this and he wants to help.
Yeah, this did remind me though, and I think this might be the first example, but it kind of propelled me forward in the show a little bit. Lost is really good, like at building tension when they're sort of prepping for a showdown. Do you know what I mean? Like Giacchino's music helps in no small part, but I think maybe it was the music that they were using here. It kind of reminded me like, oh yeah, these scenes really do hype you for what's about to come. And this happens quite a bit in across the run of the show. They're like leading up to something and they do, sometimes it's a montage, but in this case, it's just sort of showing people getting ready. Like you said, Locke and Saeed are planning and there's this music and I'm like, oh yeah, here we go. Fucking it's on, you know, shit's about to go down.
Yeah. I mean, because you know it's coming. Before it happens, you know it's coming because the show is just, as you say, it's so accurate in setting that expectation with the music, with the setting, the way everyone's acting.
The music is tense, but hype.
Loving it because I'm getting excited for this because I did not remember what happened next.
Mm-hmm.
So I was so excited for this. The sun goes down. It is pissing rain.
Yeah, we get some appropriately ominous weather.
Yeah, it only ever rains in tense situations.
Yes, I think whenever Ethan rocks up near the camp, it starts pissing rain.
Yeah. Claire is on her own, kind of like a lamb led to the slaughter, in what I think is like the most obvious ambush.
I had that written down as well. Every let's call them the sentries, right? All the sentries are like so close and so visible.
I mean, sure, Saeed said that everyone will be within, you know, sight contact of each other. They'll all be able to see each other, but I didn't think they'd be that fucking close in a circle.
Yeah. Ethan could literally point to every one of them. Like he walks out the Claire, he's like, I see Saeed there, I see Jack there, there's Locke.
Yeah, but Ethan falls for it. He comes out of the bushes.
Cunt emerges. He like climbs out of the trees like Gollum. He's like, precious.
And that is when Jack decides to, you know, try out for the Island rugby team.
Hey, what's our running list here now? So we have Saeed, we have Jin, we have Jack, we have Kate. I think we forgot to point it out at the time, but Kate does a good tackle on Sawyer in the Confidence Man episode.
Oh, that's
right. And then we have Boone on the bench. Am I missing anyone?
Oh, we should really be keeping. Does Michael tackle someone?
Yeah, I think you might. I think you're right. Ooh, I don't remember exactly though.
Oh man, we should be keeping track of this.
We have a strong team going here, though. I'm telling you.
Listen, lad, why don't you go back and re-listen to all our episodes again and keep track of who's trying out for the Island rugby team, and we'll have a leaderboard at the end of the season. How's that?
I'm on the case. Get fucked.
Oh, will it be whole?
But yeah, we get Shepard and Rom round 2.
Yeah, fucking round 2. I'm loving it. Jack finally gets to get his revenge. Second crack at Ethan's jaw. And they duke it out a little bit, you know, tackle on the ground. Jack loses the gun. And then the rest of the gang shows up. And Jack finally bests Ethan.
Yeah, he beats, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 shades of shite out of him.
Jack knocks Ethan on his ass, hits him with a few meaty wallops. Ethan tries to get back up, and everyone is standing there like the Avengers pose, just pointing guns at him. And yeah, they've got him. He's alive. They're going to bring him back to camp. And I'm watching this scene thinking, wait, I don't remember them taking Ethan prisoner or anything like that.
See, I remembered exactly what was going to happen. And I was ready for it. And I was just as disappointed.
Charlie empties a fucking clip into Ethan's chest. 2 questions. 3, actually. 1, where the fuck did Charlie come from, right? 2, what gun does Charlie have? Oh, wait, it's the one Jack dropped.
It's Jack's, I think. Yeah.
And 3, Charlie clearly has the best aim of anyone on the island.
Yeah, so I think he's a twat for shooting. I think this is a bad move, but you cannot argue with that form and that aim. Like the way he's holding the gun and everything. I've never fired a weapon before, but I've heard they've got shock and kickback. And he either anticipated that or he lied when he said he hadn't fired a gun before. Have you fired a gun before?
Yeah, so I have indeed fired guns before. Listen, he's English. We can assume he doesn't have a lot of experience with firearms. Shooting a little pistol like that. If he's going to shoot Ethan from that distance, that rapidly and still make every shot hit in the torso area, dude has years of experience shooting.
Yeah,
has to have. Otherwise, it's just artificially written for the show.
Yeah, it's dark as well. It's piss and rain. Like there's so much going against him here.
Yeah, there's no way he could have made those shots. And yet, lo and behold, he fucking did.
Now, to be fair, they were all torso shots, which is the biggest target on the body, obviously. But yeah, I don't know. It's a stretch.
It's also why the police always exclusively aim for the torso and not the legs, as people always point out. Why you just shoot him in the legs? It'll stop him from running. Because harder target to hit.
Yeah.
Always go for the torso, man. So Ethan is now dead. Everyone's a little bit fucking stunned. We cut back to the beach. There's lovely, weirdly out of fucking place music playing in the background, given the scene that just happened. And we've got Jack and Charlie just having a little conversation about, why did you shoot him?
Yeah, I feel like Charlie should have faced more repercussions here, right? Like he says, Jack's like, oh, we could have gotten some information out of him. And Charlie says, he wouldn't have talked. He might have fucking talked. How does he know that?
They have someone who is a self-confessed professional torturer on their team. They could have gotten some fucking info out of him.
I didn't even think of that. But this, Charlie gives his lame excuse. I don't know if he wanted to go over it.
Yeah, Jack asks, why did you do it? Charlie said he deserved to die. And when Jack's like, he could have given us some info, Charlie just says, did you really think he was going to tell us anything? I wasn't going to let that animal anywhere near her again, ever.
Yeah, this is just bravado bullshit. Like,
yeah,
emotions completely clouded his logic here.
We do go from that scene into a flashback, just to sum it up really quickly.
Yeah, this does illustrate it a little bit.
Yes, and that's why I'm going so quickly into it. He shows up to Lucy's gaff. She just opens the door. She's heartbroken because apparently the EMTs were called.
Yeah.
After he vomited on the coffee machine.
It must have gotten a lot worse after the puking.
Who knows? Probably fucking collapsed to the floor, shot himself. But the EMTs found the cigarette case on him and gave it back to the people in the company, who then gave it back to Lucy's dad. And now she knows that he's just a junkie looking to steal some shit, and asks why he did it, why he took the job. And he says, because he wanted to be respectable and he wanted to be able to take care of her. And she just cripples him with, you'll never be able to take care of anyone. Like, damn.
Yeah, savage. But it's it sort of illustrates his motives, like we said, certainly with the way he's been acting towards Claire. I don't know if it quite justifies the murder still. You can always tell that Charlie just wants to take care of Claire, above like any romantic interest, above any friendship even, is that he just wants to look out for her.
He wants to be the man who can take care of a woman.
Yeah, this paints it here perfectly.
So we go from that flashback. We're back on the island. Charlie back at the caves. Hurley's got his headphones on.
Yeah, I was expecting one of those music montages.
And so was I. And this is where I'm going to make the comment. You said before that you didn't remember the eye motif coming up half as much as it fucking does in season 1.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to Hurley's end of episode music, I thought that came up a hell of a lot more than it actually does.
Yeah, me too. I remember several of them. There's at least one more to come, because I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, I do.
But there's a funny ending to one of them.
But yeah, in this last little scene, post the incident with Ethan, everyone's back at the camp. Shannon's tending to Saeed's arm. Charlie's alone. Claire walks up to him and she just says to him, I remember peanut butter. Why do I remember peanut butter? And as the audience watching this, I'm like, oh, she remembers the peanut butter.
Yeah, it's cute. Claire is very forgiving, and it took away from the sweetness of this moment for me. Maybe I'm trying to attribute too much realism to a fictional show, but violence and murder are quite often overlooked by these characters. Do you know what I mean? If I was Claire and I suddenly knew that Charlie was capable of murder like that, I would look at him differently.
100%. I'd be
It
the
was pretty
exact
brutal.
same.
Yeah, but I guess it's entertainment, like death and violence don't hold as much weight
Yeah.
for whatever reason. But yeah, it is a sweet ending, even if I don't think it's quite earned.
It is, because after Charlie, clarifies that it's imaginary peanut butter, Claire says that she doesn't know what happened to her. She's scared and she wants to trust him. And they say goodnight to each other.
Cute.
And boom, end of the episode.
Yeah, good ep.
Incredible episode. I fucking love that episode. I hate the flashbacks, but they're so effective. Like, they're meant to be kind of cringy, but it has such an effect on me. Like, not wanting to watch Charlie, wriggle on the spot, trying to find something to steal, getting interrogated by Lucy's dad, and all the action that happens on the island. It's so Saeed and Locke and Ethan focused. It's all tactical, action-packed. I fucking love it.
Yeah. Yeah, the big boys are out in force in this episode. Yeah, I liked the exploration of Charlie's addiction, even though, it was pretty cliched, like his rock star stuff as well. The whole robbing your ma's VCR to buy Skag or whatever, except in this case it was. But it came around in the end to illustrating his motives, like we talked about. I don't know that they worked as the flashback narrative by itself maybe isn't the strongest. Like, I put it this way: I think the flashback is a better payoff for the island story than it is for the flashback story, the ending of it.
Yeah, I think so as well, because the flashbacks are there to serve the main island story, right?
Yeah.
And it ties in nicely at the end, explaining that Charlie just wants to look after someone.
Yeah, but it was a great episode on Island. The action was awesome. I just love when they're all working together, the survivors. Even bringing Sawyer into the fold here. Just great to see all the boys getting together.
Yeah,
fucking shit up.
It's literally all of my favorite characters on the island that are heavily involved in this episode. So, what do you think, Dave? You in the mood for some trivia?
Give me some of that valuable trivia that I can sell to buy more Skag with.
Well done. Very strong, Dave. Very strong. So, trivia this week. Last couple of episodes have been so light on the trivia. Thankfully, I've got a little bit of a weightier sack of shit here,
nice.
Right? Yeah,
Nice.
I've got some good stuff here. So, just because we mentioned it earlier on, we mentioned one of the goofs. I'm actually going to start with the goofs. A couple of slip-ups. There's only a small handful of them. One that we mentioned earlier on is no one questions Kate's proficiency with a gun. They just hand her one, despite the fact she said she's no idea how to use one, right?
Yeah.
So there's one. And then the other two are to do with Jack and Ethan's fight, as brief as it was. Jack's tattoos switch arm.
Well, no, we don't know the origin of these tattoos. Maybe they could have been done by a mystical shaman or something.
But also during the fight, at one point, when Jack is trying out for the rugby team, you can clearly see that is not William Mapother that he is tackling. Very clearly.
Is it Tom Cruise?
It
His
is
cousin?
not Tom Cruise, unfortunately. way too short.
So William Mapother's cousin does his own stunts, but he doesn't.
Yep. Spot on.
Wait, did you just say the guy is too short to be Tom Cruise?
Tom Cruise is too short. To be...
Okay, yeah, because I was going to correct you. So.
No,
what a tiny man.
Yeah, he's a fucking runt. So, on to some actual fucking trivia, right? And this one goes out to my homeboy, Scott. Scott becomes the first survivor to be buried at the cemetery.
Oh, so Eddie Mars was buried somewhere else, presumably then?
Yes. Eddie Mars was buried somewhere else.
Damn.
Scott is the first survivor.
Yeah, rest in power, Scott. Aren't they lucky that he's not Jewish? They can just craft a nice simple cross.
At one point, Ethan has an unexplained limp. Did you notice this?
I mean, I can sort of remember him walking along menacingly. And yeah, maybe it was, I thought it was just supposed to be like to make him look monstrous and intimidating.
Yeah, that's what I figured. But no, apparently he's got a limp at one point. This is a remnant of a deleted scene where Ethan breaks through the security perimeter and fights Locke, who stabs him in the thigh before Ethan knocks him out. While a promotional image of this scene has been released, the scene was not on the DVDs.
Damn. Oh, that is a fight I want to see.
Locke versus Ethan.
Shit. Have we seen Locke fight anyone? We haven't, right? Nah, he's been pretty tame with the fists so far.
Yeah, so far. Next one. Throughout this episode, Charlie, played by Dominic Monaghan, wears a Bucket brand t-shirt. This is a popular brand of clothes marketed to surfers, but is uncommon in England. This indicates that Charlie is probably wearing a shirt he nicked from a survivor off the plane, or someone who
There you
died.
go.
Yeah.
Or he picked it up on a US tour. I don't know if they ever got to do one, but
Next on my list of trivia, You All Everybody is song 134 in the bar jukebox. 1 + 3 + 4 is 8. What are the mystical numbers?
oh shit. You know what? I forgot to point it out, but I was gonna say the number like 134. I was gonna talk about how I was disappointed that it wasn't one of the numbers. I never thought to add them together. That's sick. Fuck yeah.
Speaking of the numbers, have you spotted any other numbers in this episode? Any at all?
Not off the top of my head. 4 guns, but then it becomes 6 guns, right? 5.
Nah, not really thinking of the guns. I'll tell you what it is, right? Charlie in the boardroom selling his copier. He announces to the guys, "Allow me to demonstrate the awesome power of the C815 using one." Yeah, basically the copier is model C815, 815, same as the flight.
Damn, that flew right over my head. That's awesome. No pun intended.
Yeah, 100%. And the last little bit of trivia I'm going to hit you with. Damon Lindelof at one point admitted this was his least favorite episode of the entire series.
Oh, damn. I'm guessing he was harder on this one because he wrote it himself, you know, like there's objectively worse episodes, but fuck, I like this one.
But yeah, Lindelof was asked in an interview, what is your least favorite episode of Lost? And he says, oh my God, I think my least favorite episode of Lost is this episode we did in the first season called Homecoming. It's when Claire comes back and having been in the jungle for a couple of days after she was abducted by the others, and Ethan comes after her. The backstory is Charlie trying to go straight and he's selling copiers. At the end of the episode, he shoots Ethan. I wrote that episode and it's my least favorite episode of the entire show. And then the interviewer says, I'm surprised by that answer. It's not an episode fans usually name as their least favorite.
Damn right.
To which Lindelof goes on and says, the episode fans bring up most often is Stranger in a Strange Land, which is the episode with Bai Ling and Jack and his tattoos. And basically, I feel like it's unfair to bag on that episode. Am I a huge fan of it? No. But at the same time, there were so many different circumstances that led to that episode that needed to be written and so many ideas that didn't work. The fact that it all coalesced, there was a bad casting decision made. There was a bad premise decision made. There was a bad flashback story. Just everything that could go wrong did. But I don't think it was because the script was terrible. Homecoming, I think, was flawed on almost every single level that an episode of Lost could be.
Damn, that's harsh. I'll say it. There are some incredible episodes of Lost along its 6-season run. There are some amazing episodes that I can't wait to cover.
Yeah.
But I don't think I'm looking forward to any of them as much as I'm looking forward to Stranger in a Strange Land. I can't wait till our episode on that.
It's amazing how unilaterally it's voted by Lost fans as the worst episode. I mean, sure, it's not a great episode, but is it hands down the worst?
That's the thing, is I can't remember just how bad it is. Like when I think of bad episodes, there's that one and another one that stands out to me. And I don't actually want to reveal what that one is until we get to it, but it's very, very near the end. Anyway, all that's to say, I cannot wait to cover Stranger in Strange Land.
On the flip side, fans are not as agreed upon what their favorite episode is or what they think the best episode is. So, you know, it's usually one of like about 4, maybe 5 different episodes of Lost.
Yeah, I can think of one that I think is the most critically acclaimed and probably a big fan favorite as well.
Yeah, so what would be your favorite episode of Lost, Dave, and why is it The Constant?
Exactly.
It is, right? It is The Constant. Single best episode there is.
Yeah,
hands down.
It's incredible.
Can't wait till we get to it. Holy shit.
But I'm looking forward to Stranger in Strangeland more, I'll be honest. Just to rag on it.
And that brings us to the end of the trivia and the end of this episode. Dave, do you have a theory for this week?
Charlie puking in the photocopier didn't go to waste because his photocopy puke was used for the cover of Drive Shaft's Greatest Hits.
All right. Well, you heard it here first, folks. Don't forget to check us out on all the social media. Send us an email, please, for the love of God, losttheplotlads@gmail.com. That is all from me this week.
Thanks for listening, folks. We'll see you next week.
See you next week. Ta-ta. Lost the Plot is produced by Dave and I. Artwork by Jimmy Purcell of BeanBetterComic.com. Music by Noel Brennan of No Exit. Check out No Exit wherever you stream your music. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at LostThePlotLads or email us at losttheplotlads@gmail.com.